Thank you, Maria, for joining us today. We appreciate it. To start off with, how did you get involved in the civil rights movement? You were in the Midwest at the time. How did you get involved to go down the South?
You know, it's really interesting. Movements build by inviting, by the invitation often. And so I was invited by somebody to come down, which I, for 2 months, didn't do anything about because I was too afraid. And finally, I thought, well, I was a hypocrite because I was already working on campuses telling students to support the sit-in movements and the civil rights movement in the South. And then they asked me to go down, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. So it was that good Catholic guilt that got me to finally agree to go. And I was supposed to work in the Atlanta office of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which I thought was probably relatively safe, until I got asked to go to Selma, because there was a Catholic priest there, Father Maurice Ouellet, who was a very strong supporter of the movement. He didn't have to worry about losing his building or his job. Well, he did with his archbishop, but because he could maintain that independence. And he had a black parish, and he supported his parishioners. And these organizers from SNCC said, you know, we're Baptist, and this man is really, we love this man, but he really needs one of his own to kind of be there and support him, because he's getting a lot of flack from his bishop. Well, that was another hesitating, and I finally did go. And that's how I sort of ended up leaving the office and becoming a worker in what we called field secretary, a field secretary for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So I worked in Selma until the sheriff shut down my project, and then moved to Mississippi in the early winter of '64, and was there till almost '68.
So you came from the Midwest, and you came to the South at the height of the civil rights movement and racial segregation. What are some of the things that you saw? You
know, I have to say I was so afraid that there were a lot of things that I was probably not even noticing, except where not to go and what not to do. And so I was told by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee when I was in Selma, you know, do not go to the office. We want you to stay working with Father Ouellet, but do the SNCC project that he wants us to do. That's the other thing, is he had been asking them to do this adult literacy for about a good almost 2 years, and they said, you know, we don't have the time to do that. We're doing voter registration, we're doing direct demonstrations, and we really need somebody here because Father's starting to get a little impatient. So, and I said, well, I don't know anything about, you know, adult education. He said, well, you know, a lot of us don't know anything about anything, but we just learn it. So learn it. Okay. So I started researching and looking at these materials that I could use for like voter registration, or at least to upgrade people's reading skills. And they were all white families in white middle class backgrounds. And I'm thinking, well, you know, how do I use these, you know, to teach Afro-American people in Selma, Alabama, who are being totally oppressed by the white community, who are very poor? I can't use these materials. So I started thinking about a different way to do them, and eventually evolved to taping people's own words, because I could sit there and try and write. In fact, I recruited 4 Afro-American students to come down for a summer project in Selma in 1964. And I said, we're going to develop reading materials. Well, they couldn't figure it out either, because we'd start with this language and it was so stilted. And it was like, you're thinking, how can anybody relate to this? So we started, by the time I moved the project to Mississippi, we were taping people talking about what they did. Because that's the other thing, is people wanted to know, how did these people up in Batesville, Mississippi start this okra co-op? We're over here in Georgia trying to do the same thing, raising pigs, and we want to know how you do that. So I went up to where they had the okra co-op, and I taped them, used their words, and I photographed them so that the book was made up of black people in action changing their communities. That's kind of how I got into photography.
You got into photography, but you didn't know a lot about photography.
Knew nothing.
And how did you craft this art?
Well, I didn't think it was art at the time. I was very practical, and still am. Luckily, I didn't develop any bad habits by owning a little camera myself, you know, where you take snapshots. And so I was sort of trained at the hand of the master, and that's Matt Herron, who is really known for his civil rights images. And he made this open offer to all SNCC people. anybody who wants to learn photography, come stay at my house in New Orleans. If it takes us a week, if it takes us 2 weeks, you will leave here understanding everything about the camera, the darkroom, and all of that. So after I had bugged the heck out of all the SNCC photographers, and we were the only civil rights organization that had like photographers on staff. And I bugged them and say, come please, I need this for my book. And they'd say, why don't you learn yourself? So I said, okay. So that's how I started.
Now you were a Latina in the middle of a white and black struggle.
Right.
How did you blend in?
You don't. You're in a liminal space. And so you just basically, you don't know how people are relating to you. And so it's all one-on-one. It's all about, and very few black or white people had experiences with Latinos. So there was nothing for them to refer to, you know. So yeah, it was, the Californios, the people who came from California, definitely came out of that. In fact, they were the ones who got SNCC in 1964 or 5, because we had some volunteers from California. They persuaded SNCC to donate extra cars and CB radios to the Farm Workers Union. And so there had been this connection as early as '64 between the two organizations. But other than that, there wasn't any personal experience that people had.
What kind of images did you see as a photographer when you went onto the field?
I was trying to get this book done. So it was like, okay, how can I illustrate this? How can I illustrate that? But photography is kind of like, I noticed this obituary about Stanley Green, who was a photographer for the Black Panthers. And he says photography is 25% skill and 75% luck. And he said there is something to the effect of, there's no really such thing as an accident. It's the magic of photography. So you're working with it, and it's like if you've heard writers say, I started this book and then the book wrote itself. That happens to you or me as a photographer. That picture was taking itself. Did I make terrible pictures? Yeah, I never looked at the background. Oh, why did I do that? Look at that great expression and look at that background. You know, and you built up your skill base. Pretty soon though, it's like almost lower brainstem infused by the creative spirit. Because I think luck really means creative spirit when it comes to photography. So I could not tell you, I couldn't remember taking some of those pictures that you will see as a part of this exhibit, because I was just in this zone.
The exhibit in Chicago that's opening, that's going on right now, and other exhibits that you've taken part of, focus a lot on everyday people. Why did you gravitate toward everyday people and not, say, the Martin Luther Kings or the cult of personalities at the time?
Because that was the SNCC philosophy, because we were mentored by a woman named Ella Baker. And she said, you know, the real movement is based on the local leaders. And you, she would say to the SNCC organizers, your job is to go in there and listen, because they have hidden scripts in their jokes, in their songs, that will tell you more about their situation and what they want than if you ask them direct. Because you may be black, but if you're educated, they will see you as different than them. So your job is to listen, and they're the real leaders. She just pounded that into people in her own quiet, inimitable way. And that was the SNCC philosophy, that we, you know, those were the leaders. Because, you know, the charismatic celebrity leaders, they would come in and they'd bring the press, which was a good thing, because nobody knew about this stuff going on. They didn't know there was an apartheid in the United States. And so you needed that. But then they'd leave. And then the pieces had to be picked up. And sometimes they weren't very pretty pieces. And the work had to keep on going. And so you had to rely on local leaders to do that and not just keep hoping, oh, maybe he'll come in 3 weeks, you know.
After the Civil Rights Movement, you continued your work. Where did you go next?
Julian Bond called me one day in 1967 and said, we're doing this new politics conference in Chicago. We've invited Reyes Lopez Tijerina and other Latino leaders to come. He's coming, and could you please come and kind of be there with him?
The land grants right movement of New Mexico.
Yes, from New Mexico. So Reyes and I spent probably a week with helping him with logistics and with what was going on. And about I guess a month and a half, 2 months later, I get a letter from him saying, we would really like it if you would come and join us in New Mexico. Come and be with your people and work with us on the land grant issue. And I was about ready to wrap up my work. By 1968, our funds had dried up. I didn't have anything more money that I could use with the work I was doing, and I started thinking about where I want to go. And I had invitations to go with Cesar Chavez, and then to go to the Valley in Texas. And honestly, when I saw in Mississippi that the strongest leadership and the people who first elected officials to the Mississippi State Legislature came out of those counties where there were black farmers that had their land. And people who didn't have their land were so much more vulnerable. And so it was so difficult for them to often get organized to even register to vote. So I thought to myself, this land grant movement is really important, because if you, as a culture, lose your land, you end up being renters in your own country. And I saw how much land was eroding out of black hands in the South for all kinds of reasons. And listening to Reyes, the time that I was with him in Chicago, I realized this could be a very serious problem for La Raza to lose the land base, which we already have lost much of it.
It's been more than 50 years since you began as a photographer. Do you still believe that photography could be used as an instrument for social change?
Well, that's a pretty big order. It certainly is important as a part of it's a tool in the toolbox. I think that what I saw in the South, the social change that photography generated, was this is the time when white is normal, white is beautiful, black is not. And so you've got young kids growing up thinking there's something wrong with them because they're black and they're not beautiful. Well, the photographs we took, many of which turned into posters or into calendars, or that people were putting up on their walls, gave that sense of pride, and I think really fueled people wanting to go through the horrible things they had to go through just to get the vote. And then, of course, to elect people to office and try and make social change in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. So I think in that instance, for sure, it was helping people move away from this sense that white is normal, white is beautiful. We still have that problem today. But I do think that good photography is a tool in helping with that.
Thank you for joining us, Maria.